First of all, I'd like to welcome everybody here this evening, in particular our esteemed guest, Mary Robinson, who is the first Lady President of Ireland and also the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. Also, all of the Brown family. And actually, I'd like to introduce them because maybe not everybody here is familiar with all of the family. So I'd like to start by introducing Sheila, who you've just seen. So this is Sheila, okay. It's Sheila, all right. Claire Brown. Claire Brown. Here. Lucy. Now, just to define their roles to some extent, because they're very mixed. I'm coming to you now. Sheila really has taken the running. Sheila came back from America, and I think it's very obvious. She's very passionate about the house and the history of the house. That's very obvious to everybody, and it's being commented on daily by everyone who comes here. She totally understates her ability and undervalues her ability to read PR. She says she hates having to mix with people or make speeches or anything. And the next thing she's on Nationwide, or she's with Duncan Stewart, or she's on Midwest Radio today, and she's word perfect, and she never says a no and an ah. And you don't. Remember now who your boss is here. Then we have Karen. Well, Karen is always full of development, and Karen is a real people's person. She looks after the staff catering and all of the attractions and the area outside of the house. She is very, very highly respected and loved by all of the staff and by all of her colleagues, and she does a very good job. Then we have Claire. Claire is a full-time mum, but also gives support to Alana in her business at the bar. Also to brochure distribution. Lucy, I got you in the wrong order there, just a few years off it. And she's a great personal support to her mum and dad. Lucy has been living away for a number of years, but she does come back on a regular basis, and she also participates in many of the activities on the place. And then we have the baby, Alana, who now has a baby herself and recently got engaged. Alana actually runs and operates her own business, which she does very successfully, and she's an entrepreneur. And all the family are very proud of her, and her staff love her, and she's a very good employer. And I could go on forever, but I won't. I did say to Sheila in the very beginning, at one stage, I must also personally, I left one person out in my welcome. I'm looking at him there. Oh, here, look. Did I say it right? Because I never learned Irish. He's one of my sons. That's probably why I overlooked him. Michael McLaughlin. And I remember, Michael, when we looked after the play school, when you and John and the lads were small, this doctor, a paediatrician, a late paediatrician from Castlebar came, and it was the first time he went out of reach of his speaker. And he came to the Railway Hotel to speak, and every parent in Westport went to listen to him. And he said, if you've got something to say it in 3 minutes or nobody's listening to you. So just get it over with. So I did say that to Sheila the other day, and Sheila said, I'm afraid, Nora, I don't think this is going to work for you. So anyway, I think it's going to be a bit longer. So hopefully I won't go on too long. I don't want to be repetitive because I've said quite a bit in the book, and I don't want to kind of reiterate what has been said. Sheila said that after I became installed in Westport House, one of the first things that I was asked to do was actually go down and feed a fish to a seal. But actually, the first job she thought I might be very good at was babysitting the family. So I was taken to Rushy to babysit. And it was Sheila and Karen and Lucinda. Well, Sheila and Karen were the best behaved children. They were total angels. That was as long as you got up at 7 o'clock in the morning, walked on Garbalon with Lucy on your shoulders, made them homemade chips because there was no such thing as frozen ones in the evening. And then when you went to bed, and Connie Maroney Clark often joined me minding them, they insisted that you sing to them. And they'd have a special request, and would you believe it? It was Take Heart from the Mikado. And tonight we have Ger Colbert, who was the Mikado. We have Michael Kennedy, who was Coco. We have Anne Colbert, who was in the chorus. Connie was one of 3 of the maids who were all unwearing. I was also in the chorus, and in those days there was a Kay Regan who was the leading lady, and she was fantastic, and she used to sing the Take Heart. And the minute she started it, the late Gráinne Kelly would take her parasol and start flinging it round, rolling it round, to detract from the leading lady. So we had many good night in Rushy. To tell you the truth, it was a lovely house to be in. We absolutely loved it. It was a lovely ambience. Connie and I, and indeed Mary Mack at times, unfortunately they christened Mary Crosspatch because she wouldn't take any nonsense from them. Whereas Connie and I were a bit younger and we thought it was more fun. And we just loved sitting there and listening to records and that kind of thing. So from there, I took off to Au Pair and to TEFL in Madrid. And Mary warned me that when I came back, that there would be all kinds of things going on. There would be all kinds of photo shoots. Now, I actually think photo opportunity, that word was coined by Liam Lyons and Jerry Lasmond. Because I don't think people knew what a photo opportunity was before that. Now, I will go from calling Mary, Eileen and myself, who are the longest serving, but actually Tommy Heraty is the longest serving member of the staff. He served for 3 generations, and he loves making speeches, but he just didn't want to make much time. That's really why I've ended up doing it. But anyway, I returned from Spain and came back up to Westport House. And the next thing, it was announced, and I was involved with the legalities as well, that Fawcett Circus were coming to join us. And the best pleasure I got tonight and this evening is to see that Herta Fawcett, Teddy's wife, the late Teddy's wife, she's right here in front of us. Eddie and Trace, make yourselves known. Teddy. Was an absolute gentleman, and the first agreement we signed was for 10 years, and then we signed another one for 5, and we had, I don't know that we had lions, but we certainly had, well, we had monkeys, and we had a bear, and we had a gorilla, and we had an elephant, and the last time we met Herta, unfortunately, was we were coming from Cobra's mother's funeral, staying with friends who are actually here as well, John Kilgallen and Mary Buckley. And from their house we went on to Lucan to see Herta after we'd heard in Belfast of Teddy's death. And we visited her, and I didn't see her again until this evening. Now, Eddie and I think our paths crossed during the big top time and all that kind of thing. But there was never a cross word or never a row in all of that relationship for as long as it went on. And Nick Spillane was the zookeeper, and he would bring the elephant down when the school tour came in. And then occasionally you got a phone call, could you come down? Eileen is standing out with an elephant, would you like to go and stand the other side of her? So we would be there in miniskirts. So off you went, you didn't ask questions. Then it was, well, you see, we've got a seal. And Chris Grady tells me, Chris Grady is here, and he tells me earlier on, he was asked to secure a seal at the time, and he was unsuccessful. But one was found, put into the pool at the front, and it was March. So I was asked by Liam Lyons, did I have a bikini? And I said, well, actually I do, but I've worked full-time in Westport House for the last 2 summers, and you didn't get days off, so where would you go with bikini? So, well, will you come down and throw mackerel into the sea? So I put a pair of tights under the bottom of the bikini, and down I went, and I held the fish and threw it in, and there it went. Every day was different. Another day, it was a Sunday, and it was very, very busy outside. Now, you did have work to do besides running out to have photographs taken, because Lord Altamont was not a puddy-tat. He was a tough boss. He was a perfectionist, and he expected perfection from his staff as well. And I just said we were having a photograph taken. Some of you, he said there's such an age difference with what people will remember and what they won't. But some people may remember Charlie's Angels. And I always said he had Jeremy's Devils, myself, Mary and Eileen. But, I mean, we did work very hard, and we weren't afraid to put in ours, and we always had a laugh, because you can't work with Eileen Fahey or Mary McNeila without having fun and laughter. But anyway, so it went. Michael Kennedy, I'm so delighted to see here. Michael Kennedy was the estate manager. Now, some of the people who are here, Connie, Eileen, Mary, do you remember this down in the basement? That was Michael's walk, his shoes covered. Everyone shook with fear. You see, I knew him quite well outside of work, so I didn't shake as much as anybody else. But he was based in what we call the farmyard, and he was the manager there, and that is covered in the book. And you see, as I say, I don't want to say too much, because like the saying goes, you've got to read it in the book. But anyway, Michael Kennedy is responsible for changing my entire life, because he decided to leave in the summer of 1973. And there'll be three titles I put. There's Mary, Eileen, and I always, as protocol, address Lord and Lady Altamont as Lord and Lady Altamont. In third person, Jeremy and Jennifer, and then intimately as mum and dad. So you'll understand if I go from whichever one to the other. So I was asked by Lord Altamont if I would go down to the farmyard. I'd never stood in the farmyard. So I imagined there were kind of maybe ducks and hens and a few cattle down there or something, and I was being asked to go down there. But I took my chances and I went down to the office. And in those days, Stokes and Pym were our auditors. They changed to Stokes, Kennedy, Crowley, who went on to become KPMG. And our auditor was Richard Lyons. And I was given a crash course in wages, in accounts, and credit control and all of that in general. And Michael went off and left me there. He picked a fine time to leave me, Michael. But anyway, we got on with it. Luckily after that, and I'm glad to say he's here tonight, our new accountant was Michael Cosgrove and his partner Sheila. Anyway, after that, in those days, people won't remember this as well. You had a typewriter, it was a brother, it was blue, and it had a lever, you pushed it back and over. You had a telex machine, and you had a phone where you went like this, and you lifted it up, and the operator said, number please, and you said whatever number you wanted. So we started that kind of, now at that stage, Lord Altamont had always been marketing, he'd done all the coach shows in England, he had them all coming in. But he thought, now we're going to get onto the press. So we used to cover the home market, the UK market, and then we went international. Now the home market in January, he would say, they've got nothing to write about, so off we went to Dublin. And luckily for Mary, she would go with Lady Altamont, and they'd walk steadily along, and they'd see the female journalists or editors or the women's pages in the various publications, and we covered every publication. Of course, I was with himself, who took these strides, and I had to take about 4 steps to keep up with him, running behind him. And we were going to just about every publication there was in Dublin, including the McGills, including Phoenix, Image, Social and Personal, The Woman's Way, the RT Guide. Many of them went on to become very, very good friends, and they were all invited down, and many of them came. In fact, most of them came. On one occasion, I remember Social and Personal came, and the late Terry Keane came with Noelle Campbell-Sharp, and her husband was a photographer, and they were in the library. And Terry Keane said to Lady Altamont, "Who dresses you?" And Lady Altamont said, "Well, thankfully, I can dress myself." But of course she meant, what designer dresses you? Other occasion, we had Ruth Kelly from the RT Guide. And she went, we went out to the Asgard for lunch. And Lord Altamont had just told her about, he woke up one night and he said, "I really think it would be a great idea now if we had a train running around this place." And she listened to him. And then he went on and he said, "The other thing that I have in mind is a pink rabbit." So she turned and she said, "Jennifer, you're a beautiful lady. What are you doing with this little boy who jumps up in the middle of the night and wants to run trains around the place that have pink rabbits? You're going to have to get somebody different altogether." So this was the kind of thing that went on. We had the Parsons was the editor of the RT Guide, and actually at the time we became great friends, and needless to say we had 2 and 3 and 4 page features that ran regularly. And Biddy hasn't let us down, because in the current issue of the RT Guide there's a very nice piece in the travel section, even though we don't have the same contacts as we now did then. It was much easier then because there wasn't the technology and you had to personally go and meet people and you developed relationships with them, and that's what it was all about. But then Lord Altiman thought he'd take it a step further and we'd go international. So that meant you contacted, and when I see Geraldine Egan, who's from Tourism Ireland, it meant you rang up the tourist office in the particular country, and I must say the staff there were, like in Tourism Ireland now, were just fantastic. And then you sent the telex, and my job would be to go and see tour operators. About 8 years ago, the girls took over the running, and I would just like to introduce part of the new team, if they wouldn't mind coming forward. Mona Naven is the full-time accountant. Once introduced as the lady accountant with 2 checkbooks. Then we have Biddy Hughes here, marketing director and guru. Then we have Joey Naven, who is maintenance manager and has been very involved in the festival. And they have ensured a lot of the dreams have been realised, such as the festival, which is such a great success. The last thing I'd like to say relating to Jeremy and Jennifer is that one thing is very, very, very important to them, and a lot of people in this room know that, and that is friendship. They have friends. Some of their friends go back to when they were 8 and 9, and they still have them. And that says an awful lot. And to the staff, for those of us who have been here for years, they are very good friends to us in times of trouble and bereavement and illness and any other problem, and it's very important. And I have witnessed, that's my right calling to know. I have witnessed, particularly in the last week while visiting them, they are, as Sheila said earlier, the love of each other's lives. They absolutely adore each other, and after almost 53 years of marriage. And Jeremy said something last week to me when he was leaving. So, Connie, I just want you to give me a hand, because I think I'm going to speak on his behalf. Get more permission. Did you ever know that you're my hero? You're everything I would like to be. I will fly higher than an eagle, 'cause you are the wind beneath my wings. Jennifer, you are the wind beneath his wings.